Today's lecture, we will talk about seismic sequence after we have finished with seismic phases. So seismic sequence actually are like the sequence we can define the sequence as a package of seismic reflections that can be recognized in seismic section. And what does it mean here, package? Package is just a portions of total recording grouping of reflections. You have group of reflections that are conformable. So there is a difference between seismic sequence and seismic phases. Those are conformable or similar in general characteristics. And they are separated from the surrounding section by discontinuities. So whenever you see a discontinuity, so you are moving to a new sequence. Unconformity bounded units as depositional sequence can be recognized in seismic section as seismic sequence, as we said. Okay, so seismic sequence, we can define it as a package of concordant reflections that have a certain homogeneity. So they reflect one thing, one package in terms of configuration that can be interpreted as a conformable succession of genetically related strata. So those strata are related to each other with a specific homogeneity. Okay, as you can see from this figure, the bounding unconformities can best be recognized in the seismic section as surface of discontinuity. You can see here those black lines between each sequence and another, and very nice concordant beds, and they finish the group, you start another group. Each group of this we can call it a seismic sequence. And if we don't have any angular discordance, discordance in our section, the unconformity may still be recognized. How we can recognize that? Provided there is a marked density velocity contrast. If we don't have a good density velocity contrast, you cannot see this feature across the break. So confirmation of this is usually possible only if the reflection can be traced to a place where it is marked as a surface of discontinuity. This is not to think. Just think about the internal feature of depositional sequence can be discerned in seismic section, and details at the bounding unconformity. What does it mean, bounding unconformities here? It means the top side and the bottom side may be lost because of the limitation of seismic tools. Okay, so here we are coming to one of the limitations of seismic tools. Can you explain that? Can you explain why details at the bounding unconformities may be lost because of the limitation of seismic tool? Okay, for example, if the beds adjacent to the unconformity surface get thinner, their thickness is very small, they eventually are no longer resolvable by seismic record. And all of us know now why they are not resolvable, because they are getting their thickness less than 1/4 of the seismic wavelength. Okay, as a result, the reflections appear to have abrupt termination. In reality, no. In reality, they get thinner to get to the zero thickness. But because the limitation of seismic tool, it gives you an idea or an impression that, you know, there is an abrupt change here, abrupt termination. This is for the unconformity surface. They are different from the strata surface. They are not isochronic, but they do have a measure of chronostratigraphic significance. We are now coming to a nice, interesting point about the seismic sequence and sea level changes, how we can detect sea level changes. depositional sequence bounded by below and above the unconformity represent a record of a single cycle of sediment accumulation. So whenever you see sequence of deposition has like an unconformity in the top and the bottom, so this can give you an impression about one cycle of sediment accumulation. The lower one, or the basal unconformity of this, gives you an idea about the surface over which the sediments were deposited. But the upper unconformity, it gives you an idea about the basal unconformity of the next layer above. Okay, so what is the value of this? It's an indication that an unknown portion of sedimentary cycle is missing. Missing due to what? Due to or as a result of erosion. So it's a good thing to think about seismic sequence in terms of you can just get an idea about even the missing parts of the beds by the effect of erosion. Okay, seismic record of such sedimentary cycles give us an idea about series of reflections that are or were initially horizontal, then something happened. And most sequences are unconformity bounded units of one kind or another. Okay, so what? They represent deposits laid down during the marine transgression. Yes, so this is one of the features of sea level changes. Thus, this type of discontinuity relationship, we call it coastal onlap. And we have studied before onlap and downlap and those terminologies. Although seismic reflection package above the coastal onlap discontinuity can be interpreted as the sediments laid down during the relative rise in sea level, still the record of marine regression is not due to the fall in the sea level. Okay, so there is symmetrical arrangement of seismic reflectors. Okay, whenever you see those symmetrical arrangements of seismic reflector, you can interpret that as a rising and falling in sea level. Top of reflection package may show reflection terminations, and we know why terminations. And what known, we have a top lap, we call it top lap configuration. And although this may indicate still stand or fall in sea level, it's also can happen because of depositional progradation resulting from increase in the supply of terrigenous clastics. For today, this is the end of the topic on seismic sequence. It's a short lecture, and please read the attached PDF files. You will find those on the university website. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye.